Hi, I'm Phyllis, southernfrugal.com. I wanted to share a story with you, a little encounter I had back many years ago now. But anyway, I'll just proceed with the story. So all started in the fall of 1984, and I was working for a company. It was an insurance company that specialized in student loans for college. And this company was a lender under the Federal Higher Education Act that was passed in 1965. So we provided interest-free and low-interest loans to students that were headed for college. And my job was to interview the families and the student, and I had to do those interviews at night. I worked all over the state of South Carolina, so I was pretty much gone at night at least 4 nights a week. And I did appointments at 5:30, I did one at 7, and I did one at 8:30. So of course I would be getting home, sometimes depending on how far away I was, I wouldn't get home till 11 or 12 o'clock at night. But I loved the job. I absolutely loved it. And in fact, I did that job for 12 years. Anyway, so one evening I had to do some appointments. They were a little more in the upstate area, and so I was a ways from home. And I had just left my 5:30 appointment and had written up the contract and everything, and I was on my way to my second appointment. And it was going to be a little bit of a distance, so I certainly knew that I was going to be late. So, and this was the days before cell phones, so I didn't have any way of calling the folks and said, "Oh, I'm going to be late." So the way that I went to the next town that I was going to is kind of the long way around. I knew I would be late, so I thought, well, I'm just going to cut through this little national forest road. And I mean, it was a paved road and everything, but it went through the national forest. It was real pretty in there. And you had to go for some distance to get through it. And Mr. Bucky knew I'd be working up in that area, and he said, "Now I don't want you going through that cut through that national forest. You just stick on the main road." And I had agreed that I would do that, but I was late. So I thought, well, I'm just going to cut through here anyway because I don't want to be late, and this will cut quite a bit of time off my little trip, so I'm going to cut through anyway. So I had gotten maybe 15 or 20 minutes into that little cut through, and of course there were no houses on that road, absolutely none, no power lines or phone lines or anything on that road. I mean, it was a national forest, right? So it was a little curvy and had some hills in there. And so I came around a curve, and I was probably going about 45 because you couldn't go real fast in there because of the curviness of the road. And so all of a sudden this deer jumps off an embankment on it was really on my left side of the road, and hits my car. His head hit my windshield. Now, how did I know it was a he? Because he had all these antlers. I mean, he was a full, huge buck. So he hit my windshield with his head, and so, me and that deer were eyeball to eyeball for just a moment in time. And of course, it scared me, and so I slowed down, way down, and actually, I never really came to a full stop because he hit my windshield, and then he kind of fell back, and then he kept hitting something. I couldn't tell what, and it was already dark too. So once he was on the side of me, I couldn't tell what was happening. So then the car started bumping. It'd go boom, 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 boom. And I thought, oh my goodness, one of his antlers has gone in my back tire, and I've got a flat tire now. And so I really didn't know what to do. So I just kept driving real slow with the bumping. And finally, I was sort of coming out of the national forest there, and there was a little railroad track there. And I went over the railroad track, boom, 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 right across it. And all of a sudden, the bumping stopped. So I'm like, okay, the deer has fallen off, or wherever he was, he's not there anymore. And the car was driving fine. And I didn't look in my rearview mirror or anything. Well, first of all, I couldn't even see back behind me anyway. So I just went on to my appointment like nothing happened, right? So I get to the appointment, and it's maybe 25 minutes later, probably. And so I pull up in front of their house. I get out and I go up to the door and I ask. I always would ask, is this the home of whatever the name of the student was? And the lady said, no, it's not. And I said, are you sure? Like she didn't know where she lived, right? Because I'd looked at the number on the house, so I knew the address was right. And she said, no, that's not who we are, but are you Phyllis Stokes? And I said, well, yes, I am. And she said, well, we're the ones you came to see. So I realized then I'd had the wrong folder in front of me with all the excitement and everything. So anyway, now what I didn't mention a few minutes ago is when I went to get out of the car, we had it was a new car. It was, I believe, a Dodge station wagon. It was a big car. And I couldn't get my door open. So I'm like, okay, the deer must have messed up my door a little bit. So I just slid across the seat and got out the passenger side, no problem. Still had not looked at the car. And so anyway, the lady invited me in, and I was going to go ahead with the appointment, but then I realized, wait a minute, I am really upset because my car might be torn up. It was only like about 2 months old, brand new car. And so I finally told her, I said, look, I think I've just hit a deer, and I think he might have torn my car up pretty bad, and can I use your phone to call my husband? Because this was the days before cell phones. And she said, oh, sure. So I called Mr. Bucky, and of course he was upset, and I told him I had cut through the national forest and I hit a deer. And so he said, well, you're going to have to get an accident report. And I said, well, how do I do that? He said, well, you need to go to a police station or, highway patrol office somewhere and get the people's house that you're at to tell you where you can find that. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to drive back to the next big town, which was pretty far away. But the lady said, no, there's a highway patrol station just right up the road from us. So sure enough, I got in the car, she gave me directions, and 10 minutes later I was sitting in the parking lot of a field office of the highway patrol. So I go in, and there's a nice lady behind the counter, real friendly, and I said, ma'am, I have hit a deer, and I think I need to get an accident report. And she said, well, we've only got one highway patrolman working tonight, but I'll radio him and see if I can't get him in here. So I was very happy about that. So about 10 minutes later, the highway patrolman came through the door. Big, tall guy, very handsome, very personable, beautiful smile, real friendly. And I was like, okay, he's going to write up the report. So we walk out to my car, and sure enough, of course, my car, from the front side panel, the driver's door, the passenger door, and the back panel, just torn all to pieces. I mean, everything was bent in, some things were pulled off and sticking out. It was terrible. It really looked like the car might have been rolled. It was that bad. And this was a really, really big deer that I hit. So, he really hit me because he ran into the side of me, really. So anyway, the highway patrolman was very nice. We went out there, and he looked at the car, and he said, well, where did you hit the deer? I said, oh, well, I was going through the National Forest Road. So he goes, well, okay, we're going to need to go find the deer. And I said, what do you mean go find the deer? He said, well, we need to go out. I need to see the deer. And I said, well, okay then. So I had my book, didn't carry a briefcase, but I had my books in the car that I used for my presentation, plus I had some contracts in there. So I figured I better take those with me. I didn't want to just leave them in the car, even though it was a highway patrol station. Probably nothing would have happened, but I mean, I had some contracts there. So I took my book and my pocketbook, and got in his car and we rode out to the location where I had hit the deer. Well, I told him, I said, now the deer fell off or out from under my car when I crossed these railroad tracks. And he said, okay, well, let's just get out and go find the deer. Well, we went out and there was no deer there. None. No deer. And I was really kind of astonished, but then I remembered that a lot of times when people hit deer on the road, and you've got hunters around and everything, they'll take the deer, pick it up and take it and use the deer, because the deer is dead anyway. It might not even be hunting season, but the deer is dead. And when my understanding is when they get killed on the road like that, they don't have all that adrenaline in them, like if the dogs are chasing them or something, like when they're hunting, and they say it makes much better meat. So anyway, the deer was clearly gone. And so I really was kind of surprised at that to start with, but then I remembered knowing that, guys will, in pickup trucks sometimes, if they pass by where a deer has just been killed, they'll throw it in the back of their truck and take it home, skin it, and slaughter it, and whatever they do. So I was fine with that. So we get back in his car, and we're sitting there, and he had pulled into that same little church parking lot that I had seen from the National Forest. It was the only thing, it was sort of at the end of that road. And so he kind of leaned back in his seat, put his arm over the back of the seat, and kind of leaned over against the window, being real nice and smiling at me and everything. And he said, well, I just don't know what we're going to do about this. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, we can't find a deer. Are you sure you hit a deer? And I said, I'm very sure I hit a deer. I said, his hair and spit and blood are all on my windshield. And he had actually seen that too, by the way. So he said, well, I just don't know how we're going to handle this, smiling at me. Then I was like, wait a minute, what is he saying here? It really started scaring me. And so I didn't know what to do. My heart was pounding, and I thought, what is he proposing here? What in the world's going on? And I'll admit, I was a little naive, y'all, then. I'm not so naive anymore, but I was back then. But I sort of realized what he was implying. And so I thought, I don't know what my defense can be here. I don't know. And we were in the church parking lot. Of course, it was, pitch dark at night. And there was a light on behind the church, one of those security lights that kind of looks bluish colored. And I'm thinking, I'll bet this church has a phone somewhere if I could just get in to call somebody. How am I going to get away from this guy? Now, I was all dressed up, had on heels and everything, and I had my book with my contracts in it, and I didn't know what to do. I was just, this was a highway patrolman. What was he suggesting here? I mean, it was just very scary. And so I didn't know what to do. So I'm very afraid, but I didn't know what to say. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to pretend I'm really mad. And I wasn't that mad, I was just very afraid. So I said, okay, well, if you're not going to write the accident up, let's just go back, just forget it. And I said it really ugly, slammed my book down on my lap, my pocketbook, and I sat there like that, looking straight ahead. And I was just waiting to see what he was going to do. And he just kind of slowly took his arm off the back of the seat, put it on the steering wheel, and then he cranked up the car. And I thought, okay, where is he taking me? I was very afraid. And to my surprise, he backed up and went on. He didn't go deeper into that national forest. He went the other way. Not one word was spoken from the time we left that little church parking lot until we got back to the highway patrol station. And when we got there, I immediately got out. Boy, I was relieved to get out of that car. And I started walking towards my car. And he then said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and write this up for you, kind of ugly. And I just looked at him. I said, fine. And I said, I'm going to wait inside. And I went inside where the other lady was. Well, I didn't have any idea what to do. I mean, I was just shocked would be the word, totally shocked. So then, I went in there and waited. He came on in with the report, and not a word passed between us. Nothing. I just took it from his hand and I walked out. And so then I came on home, which took me a couple of hours to get home from there. And so anyway, the more I thought about it, the madder I got. I mean, he really was not a nice person at all. I mean, he had some pretty bad intentions, and I certainly became aware of it, not in the beginning, but once he put his arm up around the seat, and I knew. And so I decided I would call the Highway Patrol office, the state office in our state, anonymously, of course, and ask them what I should have done. And so, first of all, I should have not gone in his car. My car was certainly drivable. I should have driven my own car out there. And that didn't happen. But anyway, they told me if you're a woman alone at night in a car, and come on up here, my little dog he has to get up in the video, don't you? Anyway, if you're a woman at night driving alone, and a policeman or a highway patrolman, turns on their light to stop you, you should proceed to the nearest well-lit area, whether it's in someone's driveway or whatever. But you don't have to just pull on the side of the road in a dark, lonely country road for the patrolman. Now, the patrolman understand you're a woman alone, it's at night. You don't need to just pull off anywhere and, he's going to get out and talk with you. You go to a well-lit area. That's what they said to do. And I said, well, okay, I'm glad to know that. Now, I never got stopped again, y'all. And I worked for the company for 12 years, always at night. But let's just put it like this. I became a whole bunch smarter. So I guess the moral of this story is a highway patrolman or a policeman has no business stopping you, a woman alone at night in a car, on a desolate road where there are no street lights, not even any power lines, nothing. You need to go to a well-lit area, even if it's in somebody's driveway, because you're safer there. So anyway, and I'm not saying this to say that highway patrolmen are bad or policemen are bad, because I'm sure probably 99% of them are good, but this guy had some bad intentions, and I just wasn't aware of it, probably because I was being a little naive, thinking all policemen and highway patrolmen are really good people, But he had some bad intentions, and my reaction to it was to get mad and seem, I don't know, strong, I guess. Although I wasn't strong, because inside my heart was just pounding. I was very afraid. But he backed off and took me back to the station, so everything was fine. But anyway, I wanted to do this video because Mr. Bucky, of course, he well remembers that time, because as soon as I got home, I told him what had happened, and I was so afraid. And he said that I had done the right thing. And however, after that, I did start carrying some of that pepper spray stuff. And I actually, at one point, actually got a gun I carried in my purse. He scared me that bad. He really did. And so anyway, Mr. Bucky wanted me to do the video. He said that maybe other women, could learn from this. You're not required to stop for a policeman or a highway patrol out in the middle of nowhere. Now, this policeman or this highway patrolman didn't stop me like that, but he required me to get in his car and go back to the location where the deer supposedly was. And he well knew that anybody passing along there that, was a deer hunter would have picked that deer up. You could tell he had, I'm sure, just been hit. And they would have taken it home and skinned it and had their freezer full of deer meat. I mean, why not, right? But anytime a deer gets hit and you're out in the country somewhere and somebody rides by, and it's not deer season, too bad, they're going to take the deer. And this highway patrolman well knew that, okay? This wasn't something that was new to him. So, I mean, if we had looked close, we would have found, blood certainly somewhere around that railroad track where that deer fell off. We would have found that. But he wasn't interested in looking. He just kind of looked around. Well, there's no deer. That was wrong, okay? Anyway, I hope this helps some of y'all to be safe and look out for yourself and trust that inner feeling that you get. You know what I'm saying? You get kind of a little warning inside that something isn't quite right. There's my phone. It's time to end this. We'll see y'all next time. I hope this is helpful.